Hey guys, Michael here. Hope that you're all doing great today. So, with the sort of weird status of Warhammer 3 right now, and the four different Let's Plays that I have going on in this campaign, sort of on hold for the moment. I don't plan to leave them on hold for very long, but I am hoping that CA does hurry up with some updates, let's just say with a patch here in the very near future. And if so, I do want to, basically, I just want to give them a few days to be able to do that before we continue on with those campaigns. So anyway, the nice thing is that it has given me the opportunity to experiment with some other things. And so I do want to take a moment then to also thank some of you who have recommended that I try another Overhaul mod, and that is Cela's Overhaul. So what I want to do in this video is share with you my first impressions on Cela's Overhaul. This is kind of like what I did with the Hecleus Grand Strategy Overhaul about a week or so ago. Give first impressions. It's going to take a little while to form a full review of these overhauls because they do change so many things, and I want to get a sense after 2 or 3 campaigns of how the whole campaign plays out. But what I want to do in this episode, or I'm sorry, in this video, is to give my first impressions of it. And in the again, as some of you have requested, I'm going to try to upfront as much as I can here, give a really quick summary at the very beginning in a more coherent way than I did in my previous video. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and say right now, I think that this is an overhaul that's going to appeal to a lot of people. I definitely encourage you to try it for yourself if you are looking for something that is a little bit of a change of pace from vanilla. I'll go into a lot more details here in a minute, but I'm just going to go ahead and upfront say that I have somewhat mixed feelings. I really like some of the changes that Cela made, and I have I kind of dislike some of them, and I'll go into those things in more detail here. But for the most part, I would say my impression has been you feel a lot stronger at the very beginning. You get skill levels faster. You have a stronger economy in the beginning, which is going to mean being able to field more armies, more units. You have access to better units a little bit earlier. Skills and commandments and things feel like they have been strengthened a little bit, but all of this is basically in Cela's attempt to rebalance things, and so far I haven't gotten a great impression yet of whether or not things truly are. I'm phrasing that poorly. My impression is things are balanced pretty well. They're just kind of overall stronger, but I haven't played enough to really get a sense of whether, long term everything really balances out. And there's obviously a limit to how much one person can test. But anyway, so if you like those ideas, if you like feeling stronger in the early game, getting skill levels faster, having, more money to be able to field more and stronger armies at the early going, then definitely give this one a try. I think that's probably enough of a summary here in the very beginning, but now let's go ahead and dig into this behemoth of an overhaul here in more detail. All right, so one of the first campaigns that I tried with this overhaul is Archaon, and as you can see, as I finish up the second battle here, and I'll just say that the first 2 battles did play out more or less the way that I would expect them to. For now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the battle changes. They do feel different. I can feel some differences, and of course, as mentioned in the mod description itself, combat is more deadly, rewarding, and punishing. Charges, spells, or ranged fire can obliterate units. Melee troops, on the other hand, can have much higher model count and HP than in vanilla to soak damage. Some units have been reworked and renamed to make them more relevant in their army roster. So anyway, that's the description in the mod itself. I'm going to hold off on giving a whole lot of detail on the battle changes, though, until I get more battles under my belt. So you can expect to hear a lot more about the battles in the full review that I do later on. My first impressions are that it feels different, but I'm still kind of experimenting and getting a sense of what those changes are before I feel too comfortable going into more detail about the battle changes. We did end up taking the Writhing Fortress here, which was our second battle after defeating the starting army. Immediately, you're going to see a couple of things. Number one, we're level 4 already, and I'll show you what that means in terms of skills. But also, already at level 4, we have unlocked 4 regiments of renown. So you're going to have much earlier access to regiments of renown in this mod. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to a second campaign that I did, which is Quick Head Taker. When I say I did, I mean that I started, because I have to play these out for a lot longer, but I got them started. Anyway, as you can see with Queek, by the time we have taken our first settlement with Queek, he has not reached level 4 yet, but he does already have access. He's level 3, but he does already have access to one of the regiments of renown. So I think you could probably expect to see this across the board. Depending on how quickly you level up, just expect that you're going to have lots and lots of regiments of renown available to you much, much sooner than you would normally expect them to in vanilla. Personally, I don't have a big problem with this. I probably would say that I don't care for it overall, but I don't feel particularly strongly about it. I kind of like the struggle that we have in the early game of vanilla, or really any normal game of Warhammer. But yeah, I don't have a major problem with this, and I can definitely see why some people would really like it. I mentioned the skills, and in particular the skill points. You just get them much more. They're much more available in the early going, so you're getting more than one skill point per level. The fact that I've hit level 4 here already on turn number 1 means we have all of these skill points available to assign here by the time we took our first settlement. Again, not something I care for. I think it's much more impactful. It feels better to me to get that dopamine hit every time you level up when the skill levels are scarcer than they are here. However, again, this is obviously very subjective, and some people clearly like getting those extra skill points available earlier on. And so, again, this is going to be sort of your mileage may vary type of a change, but it is something to be pointed out. Also, some of the skills here feel like they've been massaged a little bit. Again, as I mentioned, things have been rebalanced. Some of them feel like they're the same as vanilla. Some of them feel a little bit stronger. I would say overall you can expect some of these things to feel a little bit stronger than they do in vanilla, but not game changing. I would say, it's still going to feel similar to what you're used to. They're just going to feel a little bit stronger. So not a radical change from vanilla. And then kind of along the same lines with the settlements, as you can see here, Tier 1 settlement has one extra building slot. So again, just a little bit stronger than it is in vanilla, but nothing that I would consider to be game-changing. Now, just to show, the minor settlements don't have the same thing. So here we are in the Queek campaign with Cradtomen here, and this only still has the one building slot. I wanted to show how the skills for Queek look, and again, it's the same sort of thing. You have access to a few more skill points. The skills have been rebalanced a little bit. Again, nothing game-changing. Feels a little bit stronger than they do in vanilla. While we're talking about skills, let's also talk about traits. And as you can see, the traits have really been rebalanced quite a bit. And I do really like this. I like how these traits make each character feel more unique. So I'm glad to see these strengthened. And I think that CA has come out and said that they don't intend for these traits to be balanced. However, I like the idea that these are more meaningful to give you more of an incentive to actually try some of the different traits. Whereas with vanilla, I think we've all kind of gotten used to which ones we best avoid. So again, I think this is a really nice change in this overhaul. Another change that is really profound, you'll notice with the Skaven, is Undercities. Undercities feel a lot more powerful to me. Here's an example here. Of course, you start with the Underkeep in Karak 8 Peaks as Queek, and as you can see, yeah, you're getting a whopping 1,500 income from this one Undercity. Now, granted, it's a Tier 5 building in that Undercity, but yeah, as you can see, some of these different effects here are certainly quite strong. The Warpstone Refinery here looks quite strong. So yeah, just something to be aware of. Again, this is something I quite like because the Undercities kind of feel to me like an underutilized mechanic in vanilla. I mean, they're still important, but they're not as important as they could be. So basically things like this, changes like this, that make Undercities feel more powerful, you know, give you more of a reason to focus on or to pay attention to them and build them up, I really like. I'm just going to scroll through here for a few seconds and show some of the many different effects that these changes are making to this overhaul. Along the same lines of how things feel stronger, but not necessarily game-changing, taking a look here at the commandments that your provinces get, you can see that these are the commandment changes for the Skaven. Definitely not game-changing. They feel quite similar to how they are in vanilla, but stronger, which again, I like. Basically things that make these decisions more impactful, for the most part, I tend to be in favor of. I mentioned how your income feels stronger in the early game using this mod. I just want to show an example of that. So here we are with Queek and a second army, and these armies are pretty filled up with surprisingly good units here. I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But yeah, even with these two armies with pretty good units in them, you can see how much money we are still raking in here in the early going. So this is what I mean by you're going to be able to field more and stronger armies at the beginning of your campaign. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the recruiting and the unit availability like I just alluded to. As you can see, the buildings have been reworked. Here's an example where you can get the shielded variant of clan rats in the tier 1 level of your barracks building here. I'm not really a big fan of this. I don't feel super strongly about it, but just know that this is another thing that has been rebalanced. You're going to have a little bit more access to stronger units in the early going. The example with the Skaven here, it just immediately invalidates, or I should say it obsoletes all of the non-shielded versions of your clan rats. I'm not crazy about the idea of immediately obsoleting some units that normally would be units that you would expect to have in the early game. But again, this is another, your mileage may vary. I think different people are going to have different subjective opinions on something like this. And it is definitely a big change that I noticed playing these campaigns. So something that you want to be aware of. And of course, we have access as Queek to recruiting a couple of chieftains in the early going. Normally, you would still, in this mod, you still have to get to level 2 of your barracks building to be able to recruit chieftains normally. Okay, and just continuing the trend of things feeling similar to vanilla but stronger, I want to show what happens with a rating here. So yeah, control minus 25 in the rated province, growth minus 100 in the rated province. This is one of those that I'm going to say actually does feel like a game changer. This is going to make raiding a really strong mechanic in this overhaul. I kind of like it, to be honest with you. Let's face it, raiding in regular vanilla is almost worthless. There's a couple of times where it provides a real benefit, as the Skaven, for example. When you do some raiding, you at least get some food out of it, but it normally doesn't have that big of an impact on the public order or on the growth or anything like that. This feels like maybe it's a little bit too strong, but I'm okay with it. You know, again, it's an overhaul. You're going to expect to have some pretty profound changes to the campaign. It's going to give you quite a bit of a different feel, I think, for at least some of your factions. And, factions who lean more into raiding, I think are going to definitely feel a little bit more powerful as a result of this. So again, I'm going to continue playing these campaigns. I want to go ahead and wrap up this first impressions right there. Like I said, it's a mix of things that I like and a few things that I don't care for, but hopefully I made the point that of the things that I don't care for, I don't feel super strongly about them. Probably the one that stands out the most for me is I'm generally not a fan of getting so many skill points for my characters right out of the gate. I just think it's a better dopamine hit when, each individual level up and each individual skill point just feels a little bit more impactful because they're a little bit more scarce. But again, it's not a game changer. And, it's nice to have this as a change of pace. I'll just put it like that. So overall, this is definitely a nice another option that we have to choose from, and this is what makes the modding community for this game so amazing, is that you have all these different options available. This is definitely one that is going to appeal to a lot of people. It's going to appeal to me as a change of pace from time to time, but I'm going to go ahead and leave my first impressions there, but do let me know your own thoughts. I think some of you obviously have some experience with this since you're the ones who recommended that I try this out. And I'm going to continue to play these campaigns, and I'll do a little bit more of a full review of this overhaul, just like I will with the Hecleus Grand Strategy overhaul here in the near future as I get through some of these campaigns. So, all right. Anyway, thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. All your comments are very much appreciated as always. Again, try to keep it respectful, but other than that, I really do appreciate the feedback. And anyway, I will see you all in the next video.
Chase that